Mr. President, I think the American people, when they spoke at the election this year, basically were saying one thing, and that is that we want to keep the main thing the main thing. And to the American people, the main thing is getting the economy growing again and creating jobs. Now, almost everything that's been done here in Congress in the last couple of years has been the exact opposite of that. Because you've seen policies put in place that increase the cost of doing business in this country and make it more difficult for small businesses to create jobs. And so here we are today debating what evidently has become the Democrat economic theory, which is raise taxes to create jobs. Now, we've seen it in play throughout the last year, the last couple of years. The cap and trade bill was a tax on energy. It didn't get through the Senate here because we were prepared to stop it, but it passed in the House of Representatives, was headed here. The health care bill raised taxes on medical device manufacturers and drug companies and health insurance plans, all of which is going to get passed on to small businesses in the form of higher insurance premiums. And here we are debating a frontal direct tax increase on small businesses. It is the most astounding theory about how to create jobs that I've ever seen. Raise taxes to create jobs. That hasn't worked. It hasn't worked in practice. The senator from Iowa, I think, very eloquently pointed out, historically, if you go back in the past half century, not only does it not create jobs, it doesn't generate additional revenue. In fact, as he pointed out, when you raise taxes, you don't get more revenue. When you lower taxes, you get not less revenue, but more. Why? Because it affects the behavior of the American people. It affects investors. It affects allocation of capital. It affects people across this country when they know that their tax rates are going to be low. And so this, to me, seems to be completely off the track and off the point that the American people want us to focus on, which is keeping the main thing the main thing. How can we expand the economy? How can we create jobs? We do that by keeping taxes low on small businesses, which, by the way, create 2/3 of the jobs in our economy. Now, what will be the impact of the proposal that we will vote on today in terms of small businesses and their ability to create jobs? According to the Joint Tax Committee, half of small business income would be subject to higher taxes. Now, that translates into 750,000 small businesses that would be faced with higher taxes. And that also, incidentally, impacts about 25% of the workforce in this country. Well, how does that translate in real terms? When these taxes go up on January 1st for people who make more than $250,000 a year, who are going to be paying at probably the 33% or the 35% marginal income tax rate today, their taxes are going to go up to 36% or 39.5%. Now, if they're a family of four and they've got personal exemptions, those phase out. There's a cap on the number of itemized deductions that they can take. When that kicks in, their tax rate, top marginal income tax rate, could go up to 41%. If you're a small business today that's paying at the 33% rate and you end up paying 41% as a result of this increase, this tax increase that's going to take effect on January 1, you're looking at roughly a 25% increase on your income. Now, that's obviously going to increase the cost of doing business. When you increase the cost of doing business, it makes it that much harder for small businesses to invest, to make that new capital investment, to buy that piece of equipment, or to hire that additional person, or hopefully additional people in the workplace. And so all we are simply doing here is trying to implement a failed policy that hasn't worked in the past and isn't going to work in the future. And it doesn't have to be, you've got all the science and all the history and all the facts to support this, but it's also counterintuitive to the American people. How many people honestly think that the way to create jobs is to increase the cost of doing business in this country? When small businesses create 2/3 of the jobs in our economy, it is absolutely fundamental that you don't increase their cost of doing business, you don't raise taxes if your ultimate goal, if the main thing, is to create jobs. Now, the best thing that we can do for the high unemployment numbers and for the debate that we're having about unemployment benefits being extended is to get people back to work. This is the exact opposite way of going about that. It's just completely counterintuitive. Raising taxes to create jobs. It's a failed economic theory, and it's failed in practice. Now, I think if the Democrats' tax hike goes into effect, and make no mistake about it, I mean, I hear the other side talking about tax breaks and tax cuts. These aren't tax breaks or tax cuts. Taxes are going up January 1st, pure and simple. That's all there is to it. Taxes are going up. They're going up on income. They're going up on capital gains. They're going up on dividends. They're going up on estates. If action isn't taken here by Congress, we are going to see the largest tax increase in American history. And the other side says, well, let's cushion it. Let's just limit it to those making more than $250,000. Of course, that affects a lot of LLCs, a lot of partnerships, a lot of subchapter S corporations whose income flows through to their individual income tax return and who are going to be faced with the higher income tax rates, not to mention the higher capital gains rates and the higher dividend rates. The very people that we're asking to pull us out of this recession and create jobs. And so where does that leave us? Well, we're going to have an alternative. The alternative would be that we just extend the tax relief, not raise taxes, not increase the cost of doing business, allow our small businesses to prosper and to grow and to flourish, and to create more jobs for the American people so that we can get that 9.8% unemployment rate down and reduce the amount of unemployment benefits that we have to come back periodically here and approve. 9.8% unemployment. We were told a year and a half ago, or a little over that, almost 2 years ago now, when the stimulus bill was being debated, that if we just passed $1 trillion stimulus bill, that we could keep unemployment under 8%. That didn't work. Obviously, we borrowed $1 trillion to do that from our children and grandchildren. And what do we have to show for it? We've got a 9.8% unemployment rate today, and no apparent prospect for the economy to pull out of this sluggishness that we're in. The best way to accomplish that, the best way to make that happen, in my view, Mr. President, and I think the views of the American people, and I speak as one individual who's under the $250,000 threshold, that I understand, as I think most Americans do, that the people who create jobs in this country are the people who make more than $250,000, and I hope that they continue to do well, because the small businesses, when they can increase their top-line sales and revenues and increase their bottom-line profits, are going to be in a better position to create jobs. I get that. And I think the American people get that, which is why they so consistently, and particularly the best poll that was taken was the Election Day poll, where they came out in big numbers to voice their disapproval of the policies here in Washington, D.C. that continue to kill jobs. So I think we ought to be looking at what we can do not to kill jobs, but to create jobs. What we can be doing to incentivize small businesses to create jobs, not putting more burdens on them and increasing the cost of doing business in this country. There isn't anything that, in my view, that's happened in this last year, if you're concerned about creating jobs, that has been conducive to that. Now, there was a group of CEOs that was pulled in to visit with the President here sometime last summer. And when the President posed the question of them, Mr. President, why are you as CEOs, why are your corporations out there, why are you not creating jobs? And I'll paraphrase this, but I think that the answer very simply was, Mr. President, it's your agenda. And that's the problem. We've got an agenda here that is killing jobs because it's increasing the cost of doing business in this country. It's a very simple proposition. I don't think it takes a lot to get it, and that's why I think so many people are beginning to realize that either of these proposals, the Baucus proposal or the Schumer proposal, are the wrong way in which to approach an economic downturn in this country, and the wrong way to get that economy back on track and get people back to work. And the latest, I think, example of that was today in the New York Times, and this I quote, "In the latest sign of how this tax issue continues to rankle and divide Democrats, White House officials said the administration opposes raising the income threshold to $1 million. So we've got the $250,000 vote that's going to occur, the $1 million vote that's going to occur, but the other thing I want to point out is even under the Schumer bill, which is the $1 million threshold, according to the Joint Tax Committee, that still impacts 350,000 small businesses in this country whose income flows through to their individual tax return. So it's a question of who you want to raise taxes on, $750,000 or 750,000 small businesses with the Baucus amendment, or 350,000 small businesses with the Schumer amendment. Now, obviously, one's better clearly than the other, but the point very simply is this. The economic theory that we're debating here today about raise taxes to create jobs is the wrong one. It's been proven wrong historically. It's counterintuitive to anybody who knows anything about economics, which is why 60% of all the prominent economists in this country, as was quoted by the senator from Iowa earlier today, have come out and said that the best way to create jobs and grow and expand the economy is to extend these tax provisions that are going to expire on January 1st. That's what this debate's about, Mr. President. I hope that we will keep the main thing for the American people, not get distracted on all these other things that...
Senator's time has expired.
And with that, Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to defeat both of these amendments, and I yield the floor.